In episode 15, we're going to be talking about different features we've seen in e-commerce, mostly in B2B, but it'll also touch on the B2C, that direct to consumer as well. But across the board, what we've seen on both SuiteCommerce and BigCommerce, different features that we've helped build out and can make sure that we get live for our clients. But really, this is just showing you all the art of the possible that you might see, and maybe just get ideas on how you may want your own customer portal to look like too. So to start off with, what I wanted to talk about, I've got a list of probably 15 things to go through, and I know you do as well from some of the opportunities you've been working with, Michael. But one of the things I wanted to mention is really there's 3 different areas of e-commerce as a whole. There's the shopping, the My Account, and the checkout. And a lot of the features I'm talking about today will be in one of those 3 areas. That's going to be my main focus. And actually in that B2B space, there's probably even more features that are looking in the My Account portion, because a lot of times the B2B side has a lot of features specific to the customer. And one thing I would say is that one of my favorite things to install for people is our Save Search extension. This is specifically for the NetSuite ecosystem. A Save Search is a way to query data out of NetSuite, and you can configure a Save Search to show in the My Account so that the customer can see a table of information that exists in the ERP. And this is a great way to surface data to your customers from the ERP directly, and it helps avoid people getting phone calls just for miscellaneous questions where a customer service rep or a sales rep is just going in somewhere in NetSuite, looking up the information that they're asking about, and then telling them an answer. And that can be prevented, and you can save employee labor by fielding all those calls just by simply being able to surface that Save Search to My Account. So that's my first one. What do you got for your first one?
So the first one that I have will also deal with what in the NetSuite world we call My Account, right? In the BigCommerce world, which is the world I work in a lot, you do have a standard account section for your standard B2C websites. But in BigCommerce, you can also get an app called the B2B edition app, and essentially that builds out a buyer portal, which functions similar to what you're referencing as the My Account for like a B2B company in NetSuite. And that's where the first kind of feature comes in on my end, on the BigCommerce side, and that is being able to manage quotes effectively through that portal. And essentially, if you get that app and you bring it onto your website, that B2B edition app, the merchant, the business, is able to effectively go back and forth on quotes with their B2B customer, and that customer is able to have really specific quotes to meet their needs in an easy and simple, streamlined way. So that would be the first feature that I would highlight as something cool that Anchor Group has built for companies in that My Account buyer portal place.
Mm-hmm. Let's stay in the portal for a little bit longer, because I got a number of things there. A couple other pieces, and maybe these are 2 separate things, but one of them was really short, is in the B2B space, some of these organizations are manufacturing companies that are creating customer portals. And when you're in manufacturing, that means in your ERP processes, like in NetSuite, you've got work orders and assembly processes. So when you get a sales order, you don't always have that inventory available. Yeah, you may have some that you do batches of and you just stock it on your shelves, but a lot of times when it's make to order, you have to go push that through your inventory or through your manufacturing processes. So that looks like in NetSuite a sales order going to maybe an approval or engineering process. Then there would be an approval there generating the work order, then the assembly, and then the assembly build is completed, consuming the raw material. And you might even have WIP and routing set up throughout that process, which is just showing each of the steps throughout that manufacturing stage. And then the item is built, and then it can be fulfilled. So you've got all these processes, and if you're a manufacturing company where maybe that process takes 4 weeks, your customers are always trying to be like, hey, when am I getting this part? When is it going to be done? Is it still on track? Because maybe they're doing their own project management. And one thing that I like about being able to surface information in customer portals in My Account is being able to show the status of the work order. And we can surface any of this ERP data. So you can look at your purchase history and not just see order received, but you can also look and pull the exact information that shows where it is at in the manufacturing process, how many steps are remaining, if the dates have changed. that all of this data exists in NetSuite. We're just surfacing it to that customer. And that's really great for B2B, and especially that manufacturing space. I
Yeah,
have
I
one
couldn't.
other in my account.
Yeah, and Caleb, being able to surface that information for your customers in that account, you and I think would both agree that that's incredibly useful for the sales process, right? For keeping happy, satisfied customers who want to continue doing business with you, giving them transparency, understanding where the products they ordered are, right? Because in the B2B space, you're not buying something for 25 bucks. We're talking about orders that are worth thousands and thousands of dollars, and some can be quite complex. And on the big commerce side of things, what merchants will use in order to keep the sales really going and keep those lines of communication clear is that within the big commerce buyer portal, there's a feature where the merchant can have what's called a sales masquerade. So essentially, if I'm a salesperson and have a territory assigned to me with 50 or 100 companies, I can be given permission to log in on behalf of those companies and adjust those quotes and really go into their account and kind of customize it or configure it in the way that they need. And the reason I want to point that out as a cool feature is because that's a way that the salesperson can still be involved to be able to give clear communication, but doesn't have to be the direct person involved. There's a way to have better self-service and just a way to ultimately meet the customer's needs in a little bit of a better way. And that's one unique thing I would say that's included in that BigCommerce B2B edition. Once you have that buyer portal, you can go in there as a sales admin masquerade is a technical term for it.
I love that. I think being able, part of the B2B side is that when I'm talking to a lot of our clients is that they're afraid that they lose that personal relationship by having them go through the customer portal. But they're also equally afraid sometimes that their competitors are providing customer portals and their customers are asking for it. So they're trying to balance these two things, and they're trying to figure out how to create that balance. And paired with that masquerade that I like to do is be able to show the sales rep associated to the customer with their image, with their phone number, all that information. So maybe even a Zoom link so they can jump on a meeting and share screens. That way you're providing not only just ease of use in that customer portal, but you're also creating that personal relationship that they've always had that rep, they've always talked to them. They're seeing their face all the time, so they're getting light interaction still just by seeing their face in the portal. And that way, whenever there is a time that they need to reach out, they can just go right there, and the sales rep can log in, masquerade as that customer, kind of pick up where they left off to help guide them through whatever that customer needs and finish through the customer portal. So it's a good blend of those two worlds by being able to not only have that masquerade functionality, which is what your customers will need once you're intervening and helping them through the order if they get stuck, but you do want to provide that portal and provide that personal relationship by being able to surface the sales rep assigned to them, their photo, their phone number, and that's a good blend of those two worlds. So I like that feature a lot.
Now, Caleb, I got a question for you, and let me preface it a little bit. I've spoken with customers before in the manufacturing space, and there have been some that are hesitant, or their red flags go up when they're like, I don't want a customer portal that's super self-service because I want my, like you're saying, sales reps to still interact with them. And I have seen at times people just put on the brakes fully and just stop the car, stop the project that's in motion because they're like, no, we don't want that. We feel like our sales reps need to be the first line, right, talking with our customers. But as you're saying, and as we're both kind of pointing out, a buyer portal can really be that first interaction in the B2B, purchasing cycle. Now, do you think those people who have that mindset, like, no, we need our salespeople to be the first people, the first line, and they're nervous to then adopt as well as they could or as fully as they could a buyer portal, do you think that concern and that worry is valid? Or what have you seen in your experience working with manufacturers in that capacity?
Of course it's valid. I think that is a very fair thing to say. I don't think it's absolutely true that it's the best way to do it. And maybe someone's first reaction would be, yes, it is. And I'd just say, take a minute. Is it? Take a minute. Is it? I'd ask that a few times, let them think about it. And then I'd ask a few more questions. Okay, what if your sales rep, instead of talking with those accounts, could do outbound? What if your customers don't actually care about interacting and it's just wasting up labor? You're paying people salary. What do your customers really care about it a lot? I would say that it's important to have relationship, and so that there is an element. But could there be some other way that your rep could be building a relationship with them? Maybe they've never sent a thank you card, or a gift basket or something like that, because they're just busy taking orders and interacting and just transactionally. What if they were able to engage and create relationship in more than just that transactional relationship? And that's kind of where I would challenge it, is you have a finite amount of time to be able to do order entry as a sales rep. And it is good to create relationship and create that opportunity. But I would say in a lot of the B2B space, you will have that opportunity still. You want to leave it a little bit so that you're not always doing that. That's not the only form of relationship you're building. And if you relieve some of that, then your rep can then go find new accounts. And they can also spend time thinking about other ways they can build relationship, such as writing a card or getting a gift, stopping by in person. These are other ways that they may not normally have time in their day to build that even stronger, because they're just taking orders. And that's why I'd question it. I think that there's more ways that they haven't tried it. It's just the way they've always done it.
And
It's a little different.
I would piggyback on that by saying, so I spoke with somebody this week, and they essentially were like, if I have to work through a salesperson in the industry that they were in, right, with manufacturing industry, the standards that sometimes it could take days to get an answer back. Say, hey, I need 1,000 units of this product. It might take 24 hours, 72 hours to hear back from a sales rep. And even though if I'm that manufacturing company, it feels good to have my sales rep, right, talking with a customer. From the customer's perspective, it might be perceived as an inconvenience. And so by having a buyer portal, like what you've said, Caleb, not only can you expedite that ordering process and get essentially get the sale faster, get your customer their products faster, but you can also still leave room for that touch point, right? That touch point just changes a little bit with the customer. So yeah, thanks for answering the question. I know it's kind of off track here, wasn't a feature or anything like that, but just an interesting thought that I was curious to hear your answer on.
Yeah, I think it's always something to keep in mind when we're talking about features, is why they're even useful in the first place. And if you're facing resistance, let's just go through an exercise and really think through it and just think creatively. What if things were different? What if there was a new default feature, a new feature, not just what you're doing now? And this is part of the exercise of working with a partner to be able to implement e-commerce, is just helping you think bigger and outside of the box. A couple other things outside of the box would be thinking about ways that maybe you didn't think about what your customers needed. I've had scenarios where there's different manufacturing companies where they have to create documentation as part of the process. Maybe it's heat numbers or something in the food and the food and beverage space. I've seen them need to create PDFs and be able to send them along to their customer to be able to do traceability. And they need to pull it all the way through with the product and have it along with them. And a lot of times what's happening is their customers will just request it, and then they'll have to go respond, look up on the item record or wherever that PDF is being generated, attach it, send an email, and these are constant requests. So I think that my account, another thing, is my documents. And what does that look like? Well, you can store and surface information from the ERP that's generated associated to the order or to the items on that order, and surface those documents. And that's one use case that I found can be really useful in the B2B space is documents, or even collateral, marketing collateral. Maybe you have wholesalers that need marketing collateral for your products. You can surface that in that documents.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, don't underestimate the strength of organization, right? Just having like structures put in place to keep a business organized. And that's exactly right. Instead of managing, some manufacturers, right, might have, manila folders in a file drawer for that sort of stuff. but bringing that online and essentially having a digital file folder for that sort of thing and a specific place to go and find it, that can really streamline things and take some of the worry away from losing stuff or taking too much time to find it.
Yeah. There's a few more in my account that I can think of. One is a lot of the B2B side will start introducing the ability to pay invoices in my account. And there's on the B2B side in that ecosystem, it's not always as straightforward, here's my customer, here's the invoice. Sometimes the way they structure it, they have a customer with lots of different locations, which are often set up as sub-customers, and they want to pay the invoice from the parent. So being able to surface all the sub-customer invoices rolling up to the parent so that the parent can pay it all in one checkout flow. That's another feature that we've built out. Or being able to have a single customer that is associated to multiple subsidiaries, and then they're getting invoices at each one of those subsidiaries, having a single checkout experience where I could be logged in as the customer, and I could pay all the invoices that are open across all the subsidiaries in a single checkout flow. These are all advanced features on top of just the ability to be able to pay an invoice in general that just take it to the next level. And this is common in that B2B space, is being able to see many customer record structures that you have to interact with, including payments.
Yeah, those are all great ways that an organization can optimize the operational efficiency of their business, right? Especially through that portal. I do want to point out one in the BigCommerce space that does that exact same thing in regards to like improving that operational efficiency. And this is when if you have a BigCommerce website and you download the B2B Edition app, you can essentially create companies within that app, right? That app just extends the functionality of your native website. Within that app, you create companies, and you can actually create hierarchies of employees within each company, right? And so what that does, it can optimize the way that company, your customer, that company manages their business. Because say, for example, they hire an intern for the summer. And that intern's job as they're getting their feet on the ground at the company is just to build shopping lists or catalogs in a sense that are specific to that company. Well, they can go in there and they can do that. But you don't need to give them permission to be able to like order those things or put it into a quote. And essentially within the company profile, there's different roles you can give users. It starts with 3 standard roles, and you can adjust the permission levels. And from there, you can have everything from the lowest tier, like an intern, all the way up to an administrator of that company. And essentially between there, you can fill in the permissions that you want to give them. But the reason I point that out and kind of piggyback off of what you said, Caleb, is because that's a way that a company, a customer of a merchant, can optimize the operational efficiency. So no longer is the administrator, maybe a VP or a SVP in the company, no longer do they need to like be the one actually buying, actually building out the shopping lists and the catalogs that are specific to their company. Somebody else on their team can do it and simply just send them a quote for approval. And they just look it over, approve it, and they're ready to rock. Products are on their way.
You stole my next 2, which were contact management, permission-based contacts,
there you
and
go.
Delegated purchasing. You stole my next 2.
and here's what I will point out. Like between some of these platforms, a lot of the capabilities are pretty similar, if not the same in some capacity. And so, Caleb, it would be worth, I think, diving into kind of what sets these apart, what kind of gives one the edge over the other. Now, of course, you're talking about NetSuite, so you have to have NetSuite if you want to have the features you're talking about. On the BigCommerce side, just to address this question now, I guess, you don't need NetSuite. You could have a different ERP, but you would, of course, have to have BigCommerce. But BigCommerce can be paired with other ERPs and other software.
Now that we're switching into my account to shopping and checkout, I only have a couple. I just want to focus on probably the shopping now that I think about it, and that the whole experience there. I've got like 5 or so. In the B2B space, I see a lot of the product listing page, the category page, that they're going to want it not displayed as by the product in the traditional way. They want to see it as a row, and each product is a new row and more of a table view, so they can input the quantities and have the quantities just automatically add to cart. So that's one grid view for wholesale that I found as being a really good shopping feature for B2B is just restructuring that commerce category or that category in general and be able to view it as a table instead of your traditional grid view.
And Caleb, I'm going to echo that. That is huge for some companies. Like, it just makes that buying experience so much better, especially if their customers work off of Excel spreadsheets a lot, right, to manage their own business. Man, keep the brain in that area, right, in the Excel spreadsheet area. Just make it ordering that much easier. So I hear you on that one for sure.
There's a couple others I was thinking about about landing pages. A lot of times in the B2B space, they don't need to worry as much about SEO most of the time. They don't need to be being super finicky there. What they're trying to do is trying to get their customer as much information about the product as they need to be able to make decisions to purchase. It's a different experience. You're trying to get as much information as possible. And some of that information is technical specifications or looking up documentation related to the product that you just purchased. So maybe there's some install information that you need to be able to access. It's most common on the product page that you're going to list that information, but I've also seen scenarios where they have more general information, more technical documentation that isn't necessarily associated to a single particular product, and they need to have a dedicated landing page with a dedicated way to filter through those products or those different files and documents, and a search bar too. And so being able to create a custom landing page that has filtering options that can filter through different files and documentation, as well as a search bar for their customers, another B2B feature that I see pretty commonly. It's because they just don't necessarily associate it to a product in like a tab on the product detail page. They want a dedicated landing page for all this documentation. So I've seen that a number of times too.
So you've said two things recently, and I'd like to kind of pull both together on the BigCommerce side of things, if you're cool with that. We've built essentially, to give context for this, there was a manufacturing company, and for an example, we'll say it was a conveyor, an assembly line conveyor system, right? And so they're like, hey, we've got customers that need to be able to find parts, specific parts for this assembly line conveyor system, easily on our website, right? They don't want to bury it in a parts catalog. And so, like what you're saying, configuring a product listing page, we're able to take that like a PDF, essentially, of the way that the conveyor system's set up, put it on a product listing page, and then build out that grid view of parts that you mentioned earlier. And we can then make that image of the conveyor assembly dynamic. So you can click on the part you want, and then automatically it's going to bring you down and select that item that you just clicked on the image. Is going to select the item in the grid view. So you can easily go about adding all the SKUs you need, all the parts you need for your conveyor assembly. And I just wanted to bring that up because that's a use case, a unique use case. Not every manufacturing company is going to need that, but a unique one where we can kind of blend a unique, product listing page, product category page, along with that grid view.
Yeah, and really what you're talking about is an exploded view of an assembly, so that they can, if they need to order a replacement part, they can see the exploded view in the reference, click on the reference within that exploded view, go right to that product and add it to the cart. That way they know they've got the right product for the right assembly or the sub-assembly. And really, you can leverage all native category pages and just say one category page is equal to assembly, a subcategory page is equal to a sub-assembly, and you can structure it that way. And it's a really good way to leverage e-commerce architecture to support being able to do reorder of products of assemblies and replacement parts. One of my favorite ways to structure those. Yeah. I've found a couple other ways that it can be useful to help with these B2B organizations. Let's say I am a wholesaler, that I have a vendor that supplies 200 products of mine, and I need to go to them to make an order. It's really inconvenient to go to every single product page to go add to cart, add to cart, add to cart 200 times. Because most of the times these companies, they have like a CSV file or easily convertible into a CSV. And so that's why in some scenarios, a CSV add to cart functionality where you can drag and drop a CSV file It extracts all the items from it with their associated quantities and immediately adds it to the cart so they can do a review. And it can even catch, like, hey, I wasn't able to catch this one line. Do you want to clear the entire cart and start over? Or do you just want to search for that item separately? So CSV add to cart is useful when you're doing large orders. If you're a B2B customer ordering large orders consistently on a purchase order. And that's one shopping feature that I found useful.
Yeah. In that same vein, another one that I've seen useful is simply just putting a search bar or having your search bar configured so that it can pick up on SKU numbers, or even having a separate search bar that literally just highlights, SKU number, even though the other search bar technically could be used, right? Just having one dedicated to that, or having a landing page for SKU number. And that way, right, when you're working with a customer that just thinks in the world of SKU numbers, right, there's an easy way to go about searching and finding the SKUs that they need. So I've seen that developed on the front end. BigCommerce has a couple of pre-made themes that already have that feature ingrained in that theme that a lot of merchants choose. But that's one way that I have seen work as a way to make the path to purchase easier for customers.
Yeah, and to find the product. I think that one way we've built that before on e-commerce sites is you've got that global search bar. And let's say I have a global search bar and I type in a SKU. How does the search bar know if you're typing in a SKU or if you're trying to type in a keyword? And then it's trying to figure out how to prioritize that initial list in that initial results that it gives you. So by having a simple toggle where the user can toggle between part number / SKU versus keyword, then they can select the priority, then do the search. And that way it's very clear to the search that they're focusing, hey, this number I'm putting in is not a keyword, it's a part number or a SKU. Don't get it confused, and it'll show the results faster because of that. So global search bars, very important to spend a good amount of effort and making sure that customers can easily find the product just simply by SKU. I agree on that.
Definitely. Yeah. And I will say that the global search bar is one nice thing that's just native as part of these modern e-commerce platforms. Like you get a very high quality search, through that search bar feature throughout your entire website. Now, I'm saying that because it's of course that's how it's going to be in the modern days, right? But if a manufacturer is still running on a website that was built in 2008, 2010, stuff like that, which some people still are, it's not bad, but that's like an automatic upgrade that you're going to get when you go with a modern solution these days. And I know for SuiteCommerce, like the stuff you develop, Caleb, it's similar. Same thing with BigCommerce. It's just like an automatic upgrade you're getting by coming into the more digital era.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen a couple other upgrades that people do on different websites, or some really unique scenarios that people have brought to me. One common one, I guess, on the B2B side, which has been around for a long time, is just a simple product inquiry contact page that is built within the product detail page. The reason why that can be important is to be able to pass along the product SKU to the support team so they know already what the customer is reaching out about. I've seen that. In addition to some weird scenarios that I've seen is where they want to give the customer the ability to upload like their own logo into their portal. And so when the customer logs in, it swaps the colors and the logo out, personalized to their experience. A couple other unique ways to create unique experiences based on the customer who's logged in.
Caleb, question for you on that last one. How involved is that process? If that's really what a merchant wants, does that mean somebody on their internal team needs to go in there and essentially touch that account in the portal to manage those colors, or can that be automated? How does that practically work?
Well, there would be two ways. Either someone on the back office would be able to upload that logo when the customer signs up, or the customer could self-service it within their My Account and upload that file. So there's a couple ways that the path to do that.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got one last one. It's something that I see occasionally where companies, they may have a blog, they may have product detail pages that are generating. And if you think about e-commerce, it's effectively a table where you have a table of all your products. In each row, is one of your products, and each product generates a product detail page. So you've got one table generating a bunch of individual pages on the website. In a similar way, companies may have pages that they want to generate, maybe informational pages. So we've created tables where each row will be able to create a unique landing page. And that is another thing that I've seen in the past too, where companies want not necessarily a product page to generate dynamically. They want to be able to manage that table via CSV because maybe they're making a lot of updates to each of those individual pages, and you don't want to go to a landing page builder to manage click into every single page. You just want to adjust a single attribute, CSV update to the table, and it updates all those pages. And I've seen scenarios like that where they've got certain informational pages that they manage in bulk, like thousands of them, and you wouldn't want to manage those pages in a CMS one by one. You would want to manage them in a table. And I've seen that in some of the wholesaler space, more in the design where they're working with designers and giving designers where they may be a manufacturer of a product and then have a contractor in the home space, a home contractor or a designer, interior designer, working with that product and needing to be able to reference those design pages. So I've seen that before too. But that is about all I've got today to go over. We just did a bunch of different features. We just spent like maybe 10 minutes before this just brainstorming some of the things that recently came to mind. And these are just a few of them, in addition to all the thousands and thousands of hours worth of development our team has done across BigCommerce, SuiteCommerce, and NetSuite. And hopefully this inspires you on what is possible within e-commerce, specifically in the B2B space.